Hello, everybody. Welcome to this podcast with me, Steve Costello, and my colleague over there in Ireland, Leo Farber. I can't even say his name today. Leo Farber. We were just talking about this being day one after the holidays, and it's kind of the brain's a little bit slow. Sorry, Leo. How are you doing?
No problem. It's always been a difficult surname to pronounce.
Yeah, normally I have no trouble with it, none whatsoever, but today, and I can't, I just said a minute ago as well, I was making some notes. I can't spell choosing. Normally I can. Today, couldn't spell it. Whatever. So one of the things that was coming up a lot in my world, my business, in the run up to Christmas. Let's just keep it to that period. Let's say December. So one of the things that was coming up a lot was about the need for counselling, therapy, coaching. So people were generally in my communities were generally talking about those issues. And a lot of people in particular were talking about counseling and therapy. They're pretty much the same thing. Let's not dwell on definitions. A lot of people were talking about therapy, and they were saying things like, "Well, how do I know when I need therapy? Do I really need therapy? Well, how will people look at me if I tell them I'm going to therapy? Will I become kind of some sort of monster with green lumps on my face and all of that stuff?" But there were genuine concerns. I know we can make them sound funny, but there were real concerns that people have. I suppose it boils down to a really simple question. Is it okay to go to therapy? Somebody actually asked that question. Is it okay to go to therapy? Now, my response as a therapist is dead easy. Yes, absolutely. Of course it's okay. And I can justify it further than that. But what do you think, Leo? What about why are people feeling like this? What's going on out there?
I'm sure it's connected with a deep sense of shame or feeling inadequate or thinking that somebody will think about them that they are inadequate or broken or weak, um, because in our mind, asking for help is a weakness. But I truly believe that uh, people being able to identify not exactly what's going on, but that something is not very well, and not to suppress it and be strong and overcome it with their own will, but vice versa, notice it as a sign that it needs some dwelling upon, or maybe real help, and whether it's a deep serious help, like clinical help, or it's just some piece of advice, or maybe exchanging opinions so that the person could reframe the situation, the feeling. It depends on the situation, and it may be discovered only in a dialogue, and a professional dialogue has its own benefits. It's not the same that talking to a friend or a family member, which is also a very important part of human life, having connections and having dialogues and discussions and emotional exchange. That's absolutely necessary part of being a human. But professional help has its it's different, and it has its benefits.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think that's right as well. The word that came up whilst you were talking is that word that I use quite a lot, perspective. Quite often we get bogged down in our perspectives. Our
mhm,
perspectives kind of cloud out possibilities or potentials, all kinds of things. And
mhm.
our perspective that we're not doing too well right now. I feel
No.
down, I feel glum, I feel whatever I feel. That perspective sometimes is a little bit offline because the things that are happening to us are a necessary part of the process of life. So sometimes we need an outside perspective to bring us back onto the track that we want to follow or need to follow, however you want to put that. So perspective is something really important to consider. I love the diagram. There's a diagram around somewhere of two men made out of wood, and they're looking down at the floor, and there's a line on the floor, and it's just got a number 6 on the line. Well, it would have if I was looking at the line because I've got the image in my head. But for Leo, the line would be there the same, but the number would be 9,
Mhm.
because it's 6 the other way up. So which one, his perspective is right. Sometimes perspective can be really confusing, and that's part of the therapist's role, the counselor's role, to help work out, what is right for us. It's not about me or Leo telling anybody, hey, this is the way you need to be doing this. That's not our job. Absolutely, it's not. But to encourage people to look at perspectives in different ways is a good thing.
And also give some a variation, a choice, a spectrum. And there is a nice saying in the field, like all over internet, is that you cannot see the label sitting in the box. You you have to get out or have someone helping you see yourself from a different perspective and not just the situation. And also, as therapists, as counselors, we are trained to see uh, different outcomes. And as therapy was usually seen as something that as medical intervention, like you are sick and you need help to get better. And it was less about perspective because most people had their perspective carved in stone. Like if you're born in a like working class family, you go to school, you go get a job, and you work till the end of your day. You get a mortgage, you get married, you get children, you be a mother or a father, a man or a wife, and that's it. Go to church. A very simple, very structured life. But nowadays, things are changing rapidly. Perspectives are multiplying, both good and bad. And it's so obvious that we are all lost. We are all kind of overwhelmed with all this weight of perspectives and ideas and changes, so that needing someone to at least to exchange opinions, reframe the views, find what's your own and what's just you picked up from someone's on social media and it really doesn't suit you. It's very important now, and I think we're not talking about a medical intervention now, though many people still really need like deep clinical therapy. But having a regular, stable person that a professional that you come, say, weekly, at least for a period of time, and it helps you. These talks, this work helps you to digest, to process all these uh, great amount of information and emotional stress and everything. It's just, I think it's very normal. I have clients like that, and it's wonderful to work with them because clinical work is like when someone has got a diagnosis and in a difficult state of mind, it's one thing. It's hard, by the way, and it's rewarding, but in a very long perspective. But when a person is actually good and well, but there are things the person wants to process, some things from the past, some things from what's going on now, it's rewarding in a different way
Yeah.
because it's very rich in ideas. It's I feel very empowered when I am able to empower such a person.
Yeah,
It's
I think
very
that's
rewarding to both of us.
yeah, I think that's absolutely beautiful. I can think of one of my clients. I don't see him very often, but suddenly a message will ping and he needs a session, and it is great. I really enjoy those sessions. They're difficult for him sometimes. Sometimes what he's bringing is really quite challenging, but he brings the little, what he calls the little stuff. So he
Mhm.
can work it, as you just said, he works it through. We manage it, we look at perspectives, we look at any change that needs to be made. And then he gets on with it. He goes away and he works, and it's almost like he's working on small projects. You know, he's got a little
And and
project
wh-
and he works on
and
it.
why I find this important is that we all are looking for some achievements. We really have lots of stuff to do. And when there is something, you may say it's small, maybe unimportant, but you are dwelling on it. It's all constantly buzzing somewhere in the back of your head, and it's robbing you of a good part of energy that could be spared for other things, for even for a rest, to feel free, or to put this energy to your project or connection or something else. And so it's just okay, it's processing and getting rid. It's like recycling. Our mind needs this work to get rid of extra pressures, extra buzzing inside. We're all buzzing. Like our, I think if it was like in the movies or like comedies or cartoons, we all would have like all this steam going out from the ears or from the top of the head because
Yeah,
we're
we do.
overloaded.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that comes up, at least in my world, is this thing about change. So the number of people who say to me, they don't frequently use the word change, which is interesting, but they talk about things that mean change, all of this stuff that's going on in their lives. So what we have to do is look at what's going on and enable them to accept. Sometimes we have to accept change or make changes. Sometimes we need to make changes. And so, for example, the thing about accepting change, somebody was talking to me about technology. She's almost 60 years old, this particular person, and she's had enough now. She's tired. That's her words, not mine. I've had enough now. I'm tired. All of this change is draining my energy. Do I really need all of this stuff? You know, so she's got a lot of valid questions. So we had to kind of unpick all of that to enable
Mhm.
her to accept what's going on all around her, because whatever happens, it's going to go on all around her anyway.
Yeah,
So,
it's about accepting. It's about make choosing your priorities.
mm,
Like, yes, we have to deal with technology anyway, but it's very hard to decide what to grab first.
yeah,
So it's possible that we could discuss these things and help uh, a client to set the priorities and set the goals and choose.
mm,
And it also, this order, when you have it more or less in order, it also lowers the anxiety, lowers the tension. You just know, okay, now I'm working with this issue and then that one, and then I get back to something else. And at least you have this perspective as a sequence, not a mass.
yeah. Let's just go back a little bit. So,
Mhm.
while you were talking a couple of minutes ago, Leo, what you were talking about was what we know as the disease model. So, you've got a problem, you're sick. Don't worry, I'm a psychologist. I can fix you. No problem.
Yeah.
You know, that's not how Leo or I work. We do not work to the disease model. And I guess today, many other therapists don't work to the disease model as much as perhaps 30 years ago, for example. You know, the disease model was very much something that grew up many years ago and started to phase out. And some of the things that helped phase it out, obviously the realization of psychologists that this isn't really the way to go, but for example, positive psychology started to grow in about the year 2000, give or take. And when positive psychology grew, that had a different way of looking at the challenges that people bring. It had a more positive approach. Positive psychology is not about saying, think positively, everything will be well. It's not about that at all. But what we need to
Absolutely.
realize is that many of the people who are thinking, do I need counseling? Do I need therapy? Are they actually aware that we're not working to the old ways, the disease model? Are they aware? Many people are aware of this thing called the disease model. It's in the movies. You need to see a therapist. What do we see? Somebody laying on a couch with the therapist
Mhm.
looking down on all of that stuff, all those negative connotations that that throws up. Maybe that is where the challenge is. Maybe that is why people are struggling. What do you think, Leo?
I agree, but even in medical society, even in there are new ideas brewing that uh, when medicine started to be a science, they were dealing with almost like mortal stuff or maybe some strange stuff. They were more uh, tr just uh, trying to find out what human health is. Then it turned like unless you're dying, you do not go to the doctor. Then they were start like in the middle of the 20th century, they started talking more about prevention. And if you see these signs, that's what you have to do, not to be worse. And now it's a new model. It's like we know now we know a lot of how the human body grows, how it grows disease, how it grows health. And so that's why now there is a lot of talk of let's start from the very beginning of development, just leading a healthy lifestyle, not treating what's like what developed after something happened or you had some wrong diet or addictions or something. It's not about rebuilding stuff. It's about now we're more talking about from building from the start a healthy body. And the same goes with the mind because mind is part of the body. Nervous system and the brain, it's the same. It's one of the organs systems in the body. And so what we're talking more about, it's not only prevention, it's just healthy lifestyle, how not to get trapped into a disease and how to see the very first signs. And it's now all over the place, and it's even introduced, starting being introduced into mainstream medicine. The same with, and psychology is part of it. uh,
Mm.
Healthy development, healthy psyche, and taking care of mental well-being as well, along and within the general health and well-being. And so, as mental health professionals, we also do that. And sometimes I do have cases when a person comes and says, or like a psychiatrist says, or someone, I have a depression, I have a history of trauma. They know that. And I have an OCD or whatever uh, uh, challenge they may have that is listed on DSM or wherever. But at the same time, okay, you've got that. And it's a long, a big thing to treat it. But let's see how you can live now even having this disease or
Yeah,
disorder,
sure.
even knowing that, even being diagnosed with something, let's see what quality of life and how you can insert some, you know, exercises or types of work that may help with their diagnosis. But it's not about treating the disease or disorder. It's about trying to find a balance eh, for a person in with this disorder, what they have really. It's
Yeah.
also, and it's a big job, by the way, for
Yeah,
both
it is a big
of
job.
us.
And I was just thinking of an example from one of my clients from the past year who has a diagnosis, a very clear diagnosis, which not difficult to understand. And one of the challenges that she has is that she was talking about work and the need to work because at the particular time I was talking to her, she wasn't working. Therefore, her life was a little bit difficult because she didn't have the income she needed, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, what could you do then? Let's have a look. Let's have a think just for a minute. Let's just think about the sort of things that you could do. What are your skills and so on and so on. And she said, the problem is, it's not that I don't fit. And that was a big one. So we had to unpack what she meant by I don't fit. And my goal then became, well, I need to enable her to understand how she can fit. Yes, some things are different for her. She doesn't, you could say she's not quite as mainstream as I, for example, but she has differences. And we had to look closely at those differences. And what was it that made her feel that she couldn't fit? She felt broken. To use that word, I'm broken. I'm not, it's almost like a car with a part
Hmm.
missing. That's what she was talking about, which was quite interesting, the way she used the example of a car. It was a pink car as well. She said it stands out more than the other cars, which is also interesting. But there's a whole load of stuff in that we had to work with and unpack. Quite interesting. But she was able to say, "Yeah, I need support with this," and it's
Hmm.
okay to say that. It's a big step for some people, but it is okay.
And and I can add also that it's not only about some disease. I mean, mental diagnosis. We can help with all types of problems, not to fix the diagnosis. I mean, even physical. You have surgery, you have diabetes, you have especially chronic disease or autoimmune disease. They're very much they're very debilitating. They're very much connected to the nervous system, uh, and you have to reorganize your life around the diagnosis, the problem that it causes, because diagnosis is just a word, it's a term, but the condition, how you feel, what it helps or where it prevents you from doing something. And so it's more about trying to find and to help to find this balance and to help also to set priorities and goals according to your condition, according to how you feel physically and mentally. And you do need help. You don't have, even if you have enough knowledge about it, now internet provides, but again, it's not necessarily the right knowledge because internet provides the whole bunch of things and you never know who's right, you know, and
Whether that,
whether it fits you, because someone will say, oh, I have this diagnosis and that's how I cope and that's how I do, but it's good for this person, not necessarily for you. And going into, let's say, I usually, for me, counseling seems to be a neutral term, more neutral than therapy or coaching. It's like, okay, you come to a person to talk and
yeah,
then see where it goes. And it's okay, and probably it's the best thing to get some counseling to figure out from the very start, not waiting when it's coming to some extreme form and stopping you from doing things or
yeah,
living your life.
yeah. And isn't that one of the biggest things that we come across? People waited, they left it, they found a distraction and another distraction, and then suddenly it came back. And when it came back, it seemed to have grown. It became more of a monster than it already was. And
Hmm.
eventually, the monster gets out of control. They don't know what to do about it. It's easier to go from the beginning and say, hey, let's talk like the guy I told you about earlier. I've got this little thing going on. Let's have a look at it. Let's work it out. Let's see what happens.
Hmm.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it really makes you stronger.
Mhm. Yeah, I
It
think
does not take as much energy when you have to fight a full-blown problem, let's say that.
yeah. So, to all those people who are worried and concerned, it makes you stronger. All those people who
Mhm.
were discussing
It
counseling and therapy and so on, actually, it makes you stronger. That's something worth bearing in mind.
it
It's
does.
not a weakness, it's not a
I
failing.
ad I admire my clients very much, admire their strength and their courage because talking about this and uncovering some things you've been ashamed of or scared to talk of, it takes so much courage, and I keep encouraging them and I keep admiring them.
Yeah, perfect. Right, let's finish for today. If you have questions, comments, don't hesitate. Leave questions and comments. Use whatever means necessary to get to us, and we will respond always. Have a brilliant week ahead. Take care. See you again soon.